Welcome back to Mending Threads, a transformational series. This is what I want you to know. This is your safe place and stronghold for whole body wellness. And we have some good tidbits for you today and some interesting people to talk with. But I do want to follow up and say that reminder that this is whole body wellness. Think of what we're saying is both physical healing as well as mental healing. And that we're taking the framework from stress and trauma as it impacts our lives and those of the people that we love in the community. So we have with us some guests today, and we're going to talk about how to take care of ourselves spiritually and mentally and physically. And so you'll see we have something for you today. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to Mending Threads. We have with us a special guest today. We have two guests today, and our first guest is going to be Miss Mazelle Hughes. And Miss Mazelle Hughes is going to help us understand caregiving from two or more perspectives. And so Miss Hughes, welcome. She is from Mentor Preferred Hospice and Palliative Care. She's a chaplain and bereavement coordinator. Okay, and so I want to say welcome because you have a heavy topic.
Thank you.
I know about this.
Thank you.
Some of it anyway.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so one of the first things that I would want to think, because I'm thinking about this topic, the topic that we have is caregiving, and I've often wondered, how would you get into a profession like that? What would motivate you
To become a chaplain?
Yes, to become a chaplain, a hospice chaplain.
Well,
A chaplain with hospice.
I tell you, the truth is, I was dragged kicking and screaming all the way into it. I've always been, but when I thought about it, really, we were trained as children to serve other people around us by caring for people who were shut in or older people,
yes.
So we were trained as children, so it's
a little bit different than the way it is now.
Yeah, I was also, I'm a country girl, so
yes.
So we were raised to go see about Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so. Make sure they have this, take them that.
Yeah.
They want you to bring them to church,
Yes.
so we had to do that.
Wow.
We had to be good neighbors. And my parents insisted that we participate in the community. So really, it's not that different than making Jell-O to take to somebody who's shut in.
Yeah.
Versus what I do now. And after you go to the older people, well, when I was growing up anyway, you can't just sit there. You got to make conversation and be polite and. Be polite and make a visit out of it. You couldn't let it get back to your parents that you were
We're not social.
We're not
caring.
we're not open or sociable.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, let me ask you.
That's a lot about what I do now.
That's a lot about what you do now, and I guess it's a little bit different because I'm noticing that young people are pretty much to themselves, and that the caregiving component really is not a big thing anymore. I can remember when we had to go and take care of Miss Jones or Miss Smith and run errands for them and take their garbage cans in and out and things like that. So I see a little difference, yes, I do, culturally speaking.
And with my visits now, when I visit patients now, a lot of my elderly patients, they might be senile. A lot of them they might not even be able to communicate. That doesn't mean that they don't hear,
Yes.
and they do not connect.
Yes, they do.
And so, like, some patients will say, well, did I tell you about this or about that? Did I tell you about the time I was in the Army? And I'll say, well, yes, but tell me again. So, because that's their story.
That's their story.
And I can, if that helps them, I can lead them there.
Right.
Some people may not be able to tell you what they hear, what they understand. I believe that they connect someplace in the spirit. So even if somebody's not able to say anything, perhaps they may not be able to let me know. I may say, well, you know what? Why don't we sing some of those good old Baptist songs today? And I'll start off one,
And then you end up.
and they'll pick up. I see the antennas going out. So there are ways to connect to people.
Things that they really remember, that they would be grounded in their early lives.
Yes, but there's ways to connect to people even when they may not appear to be.
To be connected.
Yeah.
Or to be connected, you mean?
We like to run our mouths a lot.
Yes.
But really there are different ways to connect to people. Touch,
Yes,
song,
I see what you mean.
poems,
Yes.
scripture.
Yes.
Scripture never fails.
Yes.
Sometimes just touching people, just a smile sometimes
Yes.
is a way of connecting with people. So just because people can't tell you what they feel, don't think that they don't pick it up someplace.
Yes, yes. Something I wanted to, how do you handle your stress? When I was thinking just then when you were speaking that since this show is about stress and trauma and the things that we go through in our lifestyle, how do you manage your stress while caregiving with another person who's probably also going through a lot of stress?
Well, I do the best I can. That's really the truth. Well, it's not about me when I'm out there and a patient has transitioned or whatever. Are they having a hard time dealing? The caregiver's having a hard time, really hard time with handling the patient. It's not about me. So probably the best thing that I can do at that moment is listen.
And I was doing some reading to get ready to meet with you, and I was reading and it said that it was one of the universities in Maryland, and they did some research just to say that it is a strong difference between caretaking and caregiving, and that if you're caretaking, it then is that you feel that you are sort of doing something for someone else. You just mentioned that it's giving of yourself, and that caregiving is really giving love or something that you desire to give. So therefore, if you have a frame of reference, they're saying it's caretaking, then it becomes truly more stressful, you see, than that, because you're really doing something that you think is expected of you by some other person.
It can be a lot of things, but I think we get as much as we give.
That's what
There's not a day. I'll tell people all the time. I said, I call on people all the time, and I visit with people, always interacting with people, and I said, but every once in a while, I'll get to do some real ministry. Some real come on to the water, to the river kind of ministry. And I'm speaking of the spiritual, but I'm not there to proselytize, even though I am a pastor. But if you want to go there, we can go there. But without being judged, without being lectured to, without being just let me walk with you kind of thing. And people have some deep concerns. A lot of people do that they have not resolved.
Can you share some of those?
Well, I had one man that asked me. He was getting ready to transition, and he said, Do you think I could get into heaven because of something that he did when he was a young adult? And I said, so all this time he'd been afraid to give voice to that question, because I found out later his family was so judgmental, and they came and they said, say you call on Jesus and tell him, and I said, you need to leave him alone. He's where he needs to be. God is already here. Whatever it is, the debt has already been paid, and it really doesn't matter anymore. So he doesn't need to tell you anything. His communication is with the Creator now.
Yes.
And so, we, a lot of us get into those ways of thinking about church and about being, that you need to tell me how you feel. Well, I don't need to know, because I didn't create you. So I'm not there to proselytize, but I am there to help people find faith, that and the strength and the hope that they need.
That they need at that time.
Yeah, because
what has been the hardest struggle for you?
Well, watching people suffer.
You mean in not being able to do something about it?
And not being able to do, for whatever reason. Maybe they won't let me. Maybe they won't let me.
Okay.
Because there are those too. If you don't mind me just being blunt, I see people go through so much stuff. So much stuff. And you think, this is not even important now. The patient is here. I've seen people get into fisticuffs and right over the patient's bed, and I think, this man can't even die. No wonder he wants to die. He wants to get away from you folks. So, get some peace.
Get some peace of mind.
And you think a whole lifetime of all this foolishness and all this craziness and chaos that he's been in, and you think that you don't have to do that. Another thing that I've encountered that I find very sad is that sometimes older people get taken advantage of. And they think they can turn to a family member, and that family member is, well, they really just rob them, just pick their pockets.
I was going to ask you, because that's also a time that family members are in conflict about who's going to take care of, and they have the different roles. And how do you position yourself or handle that when it's going to be just back away, or how do you?
Well, no, I make suggestions.
Okay.
I mean, that's all I can do. Now you have to remember, I'm a guest in their home.
That's right.
I'm a guest in their home, so if I go too far, they will put me out. They'll call my boss up, but I am a guest, and so I need to always be aware of that. So I would make suggestions, and I'll say, well, have you thought about maybe dividing labors?
Yes. Share responsibility.
Yeah, and maybe do you think that it might help if you had somebody come over in the morning, or in the afternoon? We have people who come in. The aide comes to give baths and to change the bed. And I said, so maybe you can just hire somebody to come the days that our people won't come. Making suggestions, because sometimes when people are in the middle of this stuff, they can't see it.
And it sounds like you have really made you do it softly and so kindly that they listen to you. Well, look, you have given us some really good, some helpful thoughts. And before we end today, I'm hoping that we could come up with 5 or 6 later on, 5 or 6 things that we could really share with our audience that they can hold on to. Okay. So I want to thank you for being here, and we'll talk just a little bit later. Okay. Yes, we're back with Mending Threads, and we have our own Dr. Floyd Atkins with Center for Wellness and Healing. And I just want to say thank you for coming back.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Yes.
I didn't want to say good morning because it'll be short indeed.
Well.
But good morning, good evening, and good afternoon.
Yes.
I want to say to you, and I had taken the challenge a few weeks ago, and this is the end of February, and I want to let the audience know that I have lost 4 pounds, not gained 4 pounds, and I'm moving on to my wellness, in that things are more balanced, and also my system is a little bit more balanced, and so I'll share some of that with you as we talk. Okay then?
Yes.
So, Dr. Atkins, the last time you were here, we talked about how to get started on our wellness plan.
Yes.
And so we know that the emphasis of this show is really looking at how stress and trauma impacts the body, the wellness, the mind, mental health, and physical health.
Yes.
So you gave us some ideas. If you could just summarize a little bit of how we're going to get started on this whole body wellness and sustain.
Yes, I'll be happy to. I guess the last time we were here, we did talk about, the issue with mental health, physical health, emotional health is toxicity. The chemicals we expose to in our lives, the food we eat, the water we drink are all a part of it. Everything has a taxing effect on our immune system. So the more we can stimulate our immunity and build that up, the better we will do. I always emphasize to people that 80% of our immune function happens in our gastrointestinal tract, which is our GI tract, our stomach, colon, large intestine, small intestines. So a lot of holistic practitioners would always refer to it as life and death begins in the colon. So whatever happens there is going to control your whole life. So we talked about before how we become toxic, because it's important to know that the reason we do detoxify is because it's things we're doing every day, whether we know it or not, is causing our problems. Like number one, just a simple one, I guess we talked about off camera, was constipation.
Yes.
Well, constipation is important. That means your sewage system in your body, your elimination system, is not working properly. If that backs up, toxins back up, they back up into your bloodstream, they bathe your tissues, and therefore you get sick. You start having issues. It weakens your immune system, and then it allows a gateway for other processes to take place, other dysfunction to occur. Number two is poor diet. Everybody's mostly familiar with that. You hear so much information about processed food, about what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat, about sugars, about salts, about starches. So we have to address that. We have to really change our diet. So even in this whole detoxification process, the key factor is always what you're picking up with your hands and what you put into your body. Because no matter how much you detox, if you're still putting the wrong things in, you're not going to get a good outcome.
So sort of talk a little bit about, because this is Lent and people are choosing diets to have, and what should I do? Can you give us an idea of how we could really just gradually get started on that, paying attention to constipation in the colon? Can you tell us what we would?
Well, the most effective, you hear so much information about diets and about diet plans. The most effective way to go is a plant-based diet. Now, plant-based diet doesn't mean that you have to be, 100% vegetarian or vegan or have a term on it. What that means, it has to be plant-based. The foundation of what you eat has to be based on plants. And as much live plants or raw plants as possible, because that provides fiber, it controls blood sugar, it controls elimination, it controls so many things. So we want to do that. I always recommend doing 80% raw, at least 75 to 80% raw. So that means when you eat a plate of food, that you want 3/4 of it to be food that has not been cooked. Has the enzymes, the micronutrients, the phytochemicals, the vitamins and minerals that we need for health, because that's really what we're eating for. We're not eating for taste, we're eating for that. And then number two, you want to make sure that you get an adequate amount of colorful fruits and vegetables. Well, let me say it this way, colorful vegetables and fruits. Because when I say fruits first, people gravitate to fruit and never get to the vegetables.
Yes.
So colorful, because those are your antioxidants, those are your amino acids. And these are the things that have to be the components of a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle, not just a diet, but a healthy eating plan. So the big part of that is to have that healthy eating plan.
So give me a plate. So for example, like this afternoon, I'm
Yes.
trying my best to stick with it. So I have coleslaw,
Yes.
I have avocado,
Yes.
and then I have some leftover cabbage
Yes.
that I had stir fried.
Yes.
Okay, and so that's going to be sort of my lunch today.
Okay.
Okay, and then for dinner, I'm thinking about having some kind of soup, like a pea soup.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then I was going to have my salad.
Yes.
So I made this big salad.
Yes.
Okay, and then I was going to have a little piece of salmon.
Salmon. Okay.
Okay.
Well, just from what you told me there, you're already at 50 to 75% raw, which is
Okay,
good because
okay.
with the coleslaw, which people don't realize, it's a raw dish.
Yes.
So that means you're getting all the nutrient value you can out of that particular vegetable. The avocado, again, high in fiber content, good raw source, great oils for joints, great oils for just lubricating, and your good omega oils also. The cabbage is a cooked dish. I like to, with cabbages, traditionally I was raised where you cook the cabbage for 3 hours, you add all the ingredients to it till it's almost falling apart.
Yes.
But you want to stir fry it and maybe cook it only for 3 to 5 minutes at low heat, with an olive oil, with a
Yes,
grapeseed
that's
oil
right.
and things like that.
Mhm.
And that way you can get the most nutrient value out of that.
Well, my concern was
Yeah.
that both of them are cabbage. So, in a sense. So
Yes.
I was concerned that I wasn't taking in the kind of nutrients that I need, like a balance of
Yeah.
nutrients.
Well, when you tell me cabbage, I think of cruciferous vegetables. So it tells me this is your immunity day because all of those things stimulate your immune system.
Oh,
They help
okay.
fight disease.
Mhm.
So, and especially when it comes to things like people who are at risk for cancer, it's a good vegetable for that,
Okay,
cruciferous
okay.
vegetables. So even though you may be having cabbage for that day, you want to rotate your diet. You don't want to eat the same thing every day. If you were having cabbage every day, that would be a concern.
Oh.
So, adding your sweet potato in one day
Okay.
as opposed to a white potato.
Okay.
Better antioxidants, lower glycemic index, lower sugar levels, although it is sweet. You can bake that potato, add
Yes.
coconut oil to it, and
Yes.
have that as a part of the meal. And there are many other dishes. The salads, dark leafy greens. You want to do your kales, you want to do your chard, you want to do your spinach. You can also do arugula as your basic greens.
okay.
And you add things on top of that like your peppers, your bell peppers, your reds, your yellows. I don't really advocate green peppers because green pepper is really an unripened pepper, but we eat it because that's what we were accustomed
Oh.
to. But it's really not a pepper you should eat. You should let it ripen to red
Oh.
or orange or yellow.
Okay,
But you
okay.
add that to it because great antioxidants with the colors.
Oh, really?
And
I
then-
didn't know that.
Right. And then, and then you add a fruit to your salad like tomatoes.
Oh, okay. Yes,
Because
yes.
tomatoes are fruit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, now here's the question.
Yes.
Can you put fruit? Can you put an apple in with your salad? Because now I'm hearing something about
Yeah.
not mixing fruit with vegetables.
Yes. Well, and you can use apple. There are certain fruits like strawberries and a lot of the strawberries. Not something you should really add to salad. And I see that in salads.
Oh.
Citrus like mandarin oranges, or they put little orange slices in
Yes.
salads. No, because that's a citrus is something you really should eat alone, separately. It's a cleansing fruit.
Huh.
Grapefruit, oranges, things like that. Those citrus you need to have that separate from any other fruits because they're very acidic and they have a cleansing effect on your body. So when you're eating those with other fruits, you're actually cleansing everything out. But I do a dried wild blueberry and also a green apple as opposed to a red apple. And slice it, then you can add that to salads.
Now, is there a reason why you're doing the green apple?
It just because of the content of the apple, it's a better apple. It holds its integrity longer. The red apples in a salad would tend to break down after a while. And it depends what type of apple you use. A Fuji apple is good for a salad,
Yes.
but the Gala apples and apples you may see don't do so well.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a good point. There is a guide for food combining, and the principle of food combining, it says that you never should mix a starch like a starch with a meat. So people don't realize what that means. So you never combine a starch protein with a meat protein.
Huh.
So what does that mean?
Okay.
That means you should never eat a sandwich because you take 2 pieces of bread, which is a
Yes,
starch, and you
yes.
put it in meat, because starches tend to slow down the digestion of animal protein. So when if you ate the meat by itself, like some cultures do,
Yes.
you can digest it much better than eating with starch, because starch will
I
slow it
see.
down and it makes the meat actually ferment, and the meat will spoil in your stomach while you're trying to digest it.
Yes.
There are certain, like say the fruits, the citrus fruits, you never mix those with other fruits. You have the low
I see.
glycemic fruits, the high sugar fruits, and when you mix them together, it causes an indigestion. It actually irritates your stomach.
Well, this is
So
good.
those are the things that people really need to know, and just about simple digestion, because when you don't food combine, what tends to happen, it interferes with digestion, it interferes with digestion, it slows down your digestion, it zaps your energy because you're not processing food for
Wow.
energy, so you end up being fatigued. People eat and they fall asleep. Yes. It's so evident at Thanksgiving time when we have turkey and dressing.
Yes.
We're mixing all these starches and proteins together, and people eat and they go fall asleep for 2 hours. They get back up, they eat again, and fall asleep again, and they miss the whole football game.
Yes, yes. Well, look, can we sum up? Can we do a good summary, and then we're going to come back? I just want you to do this, and we're going to come back and try to put something together with the caregiving people just for a minute.
Yes.
Can you talk some basic about the foods that we need to include or allow on our detoxification plan?
Okay. Well, one thing I want to say is that you want to limit the food you eat. There, one way to detox is fasting. So, some of that, I know during Lenten season, some people fast during the day, they might fast during daylight hours, but I don't advocate, actually, you can fast for periods of time. A fast is really an 8-hour period. Like when we go to bed at night, overnight we eat breakfast because we're breaking a fast. One thing I recommend, I brought my smoothie today, you said I didn't have it last time. This is a vegetable fruit smoothie. It has kale, cilantro. It has some celery in it, because all those are good for blood pressure and good for detoxification. It also has a little mango, pineapple in it, ginger root for anti-inflammatory. This is what I have in the morning for breakfast, especially when I want to do a detox. So I don't have to worry about bacon and eggs, or I don't have to worry about cereals or whatever people choose for breakfast. You have this in the morning. This has hemp seed and chia seeds, which is a good protein source. It keeps you from getting hungry. It's like eating a piece of meat, but it's all plant-based. So that's your breakfast right there. For lunch, you always want to have that large salad. 50% of your plate, half your plate should be raw salads. And you want as many vegetables as possible, not just tomatoes and carrots and lettuce.
Yes.
You want to get the dark greens, you want to get your carrots, you want to get your tomatoes, you want to get your peppers, you want to get as much as you can in there. I like jicama, I like beets and things like that. And then the salmon would be good. When it comes to starch, I either choose things like a rice, but it has to be a red rice or black rice or wild rice. Those are better choices than even white rices or brown rices. Taste the same, great taste. Add coconut oil to it rather than using a butter, because it's more heart healthy. But that'll be a starch, and beans will always go well.
Well, I know we're going to have fun because we have 3 food is medicine and cook-offs planned, and I'll get the schedule so you know, and we'll be able to actually prepare the foods, and we're going to invite you as the guest. We're going to invite you to those, and we'll put it up on the screen at the end as to when we're going to have those opportunities. So you'll be able to come and talk with Dr. Atkins and Chef Kelly and interview them and find out what we're doing, and then maybe we could talk them into having some prepared stuff, which I've been begging to have some in our refrigerator, so you could come by and pick it up. And then you won't have to worry about that.
Well, one thing I'd be happy to do is give you the recipe for the smoothie.
Okay, then.
And we can do a food demonstration on how to make that, because it's very simple, and once people know how to do it, they can move forward.
Okay. I want to thank you for being with us today.
Yes.
And I always look for the 4th Tuesday of the month.
Well, I do too.
Because I know that we're really doing something, and so we're going to now work on getting more people to participate
Yes.
in trying this.
Yes.
Okay. And look, I think I'm going to have more weight loss, healthy weight loss, the next time on the end of the next month. So we'll look forward to that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for doing.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're back with Mending Threads, and we have our full team right here today. We have nurse Dr. Janice Sanders with the Fort Bend County Black Nurses Association, and we also have our previous guest, Miss Mazelle Hughes, and we have Reverend Dr. Atkins over here. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at and just summarize some tips that we want to leave you with from different perspectives, from looking at stress and trauma from the nurse's perspective, from the doctor's perspective, and from the pastor's perspective, in terms of caregiving and in terms of our lifestyles. So let's just explore together what kinds of things could we leave them, because we're serious and we want people to actually not just listen at something for entertainment, but to come and take steps. This is your next step. So we've looked at health, we've looked at what stress is, now it's time for us to make the next move. So what kind of tips can we give them? Let's just brainstorm.
As far as with caregivers,
Yes.
you know, we have caregivers of different types.
Yes.
As baby boomers, we're like in the sandwich situation where we're taking care of our children, we're taking care of our parents. Children have become caregivers also.
That's right.
If they have a mom, you know, with breast cancer or whatever, and they're helping at home, research says between 8 and 18, children have become caregivers. It may be a menial task as to prepare food for them or wash the dishes. It's part of chores, but it's a regular thing that they have to do. Do the shopping, make the grocery list. So children are becoming caregivers. Exes are becoming caregivers because you may have separated from your ex. It's been 20 years, and then he comes down with
Step up to the plate.
Yeah, prostate cancer or something. There's nobody he has to take. And so, as a caregiver, it's opportunity. You know, it's hard to take care of ex that y'all had problems with.
Well, look.
Okay.
Now look,
another
segment.
That's okay.
I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share this.
Uh-huh.
This was real. My husband.
Mm-hmm.
We were separated at the time. We were not. This is the children's father. He became ill. The next thing I know, he and my mother, they were best friends. The next thing I know, my mother was he had her to come up to the hospital and get him out. He was sneaking out for her to pick him up. She became, so yes, I see what you said. That is true.
And so it's really a time to heal old wounds, you know. Then you have friends that become caregivers when family members are not there. Friends and neighbors step in. You think maybe people from your church will come out and help. They'll say sometimes, if your family can't do it or your neighbors can't do it, you call us. But no, the church should step in, because the church is family, you know. And so we should step in and take them to a doctor's appointment, take them a casserole. Yeah, it's just a little thing.
But sometimes churches are into the thing of having church and really stress themselves.
Right.
And so one of the things that we're taking on ourselves is to bring people closer with the physician and the pastors and showing them, teaching them and training through our trainers how to go about, how to use your existing resources in order to care for your members or your congregation.
And I think also it's important to make sure those people are trained from the church.
That's right.
that you're gonna be, first of all, a servant in these people's home, and they don't need you butting into their business. And this is what you're gonna do, where the boundaries are.
Boundary
Yes.
setting, boundary setting.
Boundaries are
How to
good.
respect
Boundaries are
ethics.
good for us.
Yes.
And I tell people in my bereavement support group, I tell them, grieving is hard work. And so you need to what? It's hard work. You need to make sure you eat balanced nutritious meals. You need to get sleep. You need to take a walk every day. Do your spiritual work every day. Take time out to be by yourself all the time. And that could happen. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour that you take to give yourself time to think clearly and and clear your mind. And then if you need some outside help, then you need to go get that.
Yes.
But you don't need to feel guilty about
Having respite care for yourself.
being angry with the patient. Yeah, you don't need. That's natural. That's very taxing to take care of somebody. It's it demands everything. Your life is gone. We're talking about. You'd be lucky to be able to sit down and have lunch. You got all these, everything on your plate, and then you have the patient too. It's very demanding,
To
very
be
taxing.
very specific about it, when I was caring for my husband, one of the things that you said is you have to learn how to ask for help. I can remember, look at a smile. I can remember I was doing everything, and the only time I had was when I went to the restroom, and I remember gaining a lot of weight because you just don't even have time. The only time I had was when I went to the restroom, and I didn't have that time because it was not at peace. It was always something demanding. So one of the things that I wanted to say is to really know how to ask for help, because Nurse Sanders had to come over and say, I have somebody that's going to come help you. Okay, and I need her to be at your house right now. And I had to go. I accepted that, and it was like a new day. That's all I know.
Sometimes
Like
you
the
just have to
color
walk
came
in.
back to your face.
That's what they were saying. The color
I
came
walk
back to
in
me.
on people when I say, but the worst thing you can say to people who are grieving, well, it's empty really. It's not the worst thing, but it's empty when somebody's grieving and you say, well, call me if you need anything. And no, you don't do that. You're not gonna call, because we're used to taking care, shouldering our own burdens. And my mama used to say, every tub must sit on its own bottom. And so we were taught to handle it, and if you can't handle it by yourself, then you fail. So we don't want to stumble. You see what I mean? But
Well, the thing is, for
taught,
African Americans, this is just throw this in for black history.
yeah,
We were taught, particularly African American women, were
handle it.
taught that if you couldn't handle your family and your business, then you just not no woman. What are you?
And
So
you
if
just
you ask
suck
for
it
help,
up.
you just not no
And
woman.
you just suck it up and keep going.
Yes.
The same with grieving. That's one thing we can do to learn to grieve things with somebody else.
Well, now
And
let me just interrupt here with this grieving thing and this stuff. So one of the things is that when we look at stress and grieving and whatever, all of that is really like a trauma that's affecting the body.
it is.
So I wanted to see briefly, I know we have a few minutes, to see how we can pray or meditate or eat, Dr. Atkins, or whatever. What specifically can we come together? Those were some good ones you just had there. And what can we do to augment what is this?
Well, the whole approach I took when I got into healthcare was to be proactive about our health, and that's what our healthcare doesn't emphasize that, and people are not educated to be proactive. You don't want to wait till you get a diagnosis or you have a disease to start doing something. Now, if you're in that point, you have to deal with those circumstances, but I try to advocate for people to start making changes. Early in my career as a podiatrist, I did a lot of geriatric work. All of my patients, when I would go to nursing homes, I go to senior citizens building, they were 70, 80, 90 years old, and they would always look at me and say, young man, don't live your life the way I did, because you see where I am now. I have no family, I have nobody here, because I lived a life differently. I lived a riotous life.
Yes.
And that's a lot where you see. And I listened to that for 10 to 15 years, and I finally hit me when I got into my 40s and say, I'm not gonna live my life like that. I need to make some changes now. So I started in my early 40s making dietary changes, lifestyle changes. I started getting proper rest, proper sleep, and things like that. So that's really the approach you want to take. And that's how we change the whole system a little bit, by people taking responsibility. A lot of people don't want to take responsibility for anything. They want to leave it to the caregiver. They want to leave it to the nurse. You fix me, I'll do what I want to do. When I get in trouble, I'll call you.
Right.
Or I'll call the psychologist when I get in trouble, I'll call you.
Some
But you have,
prevention is
but you have to
necessary.
take responsibility.
Or where somebody
Right.
transitions,
Yeah.
then they, what now, what do I do?
Right.
Well, you should have been thinking about this.
Exactly.
You know you
Have
were.
it ready. You
Yeah.
know.
Be
And you know
proactive.
this patient, I feel like saying sometimes, now did you really think that this patient was gonna get up and walk out of here?
Right.
Now did you really think that?
Right.
You should have been thinking about this and making these plans so that you're not at the mercy of the mortuary.
Yes,
And then your back is not against the wall. And most of all, maybe I shouldn't say this, but most of all, I'm not standing up there at 3 o'clock in the morning looking at my hands like you are too.
Right.
I didn't want to go there.
You didn't want to go there, but I'll go there because
Yes, go there. Yes.
I'll be the one that they will call
Right.
to. Oh, please come, and we both sitting up there looking at our hands,
Right,
like we don't know quite what to do, because you have not given this any thought or any preparation for it, and you knew it was coming.
They don't want to let go, and when you plan ahead, it's like, this is final, this is real, and they don't want to accept that, but we have to. We have
My
to.
son, you asked me what I do. My son had 3 strokes the end of last year. 3. And he told me that he was not going to take his medication. He did not want to live on medication, and he's going to do what he wants to do. And I told my daughter-in-law, I said, we need to make sure we got things in place, because we know that these were diabetic.
Right.
And so I said, you know how that diabetes works. It hits you like a wake-up call, and it may quiet down for a while, but then when it comes back, it's gonna come back hot and heavy. And so my girlfriend said, "Oh, she's thinking that's your only son, and you can talk like that." And she and her husband have one child, and one son too. And so she said, "You can do that, Mason. That's a hard conversation to have." I said, "It wasn't that hard." Because I know who they gonna be looking to pay that bill when it comes. I said
That's
it
right.
wasn't. I said I can only do what I can do.
Yes.
He's a grown man. He certainly has that's his right to make that decision. He knows how I feel. He knows how my daughter-in-law feels. He knows how his children feel. That's his decision to make, and I respect that.
You know what I found is that when you have a meeting of the mind with the person, that's transitioning, and when you know you're talking to them, you find out what they want and how they feel, and then you don't have a problem with it because they are in the same place with you at the same time. If you don't, then it's almost like, well, I didn't know what he wanted, I didn't know what she wanted, I didn't know what to say. But if you're there with them, okay, I can remember calling you and I was sitting there like, what to give? Should I give him anything? Should I do that? Yeah, he says it's going to postpone his life some, but it's going to go there at this point in time. So then I knew right then. I had to stop and get everything ready. And then I told him what I was going to do. Is this something that you want? Is this the way that you want to see it? And he said, yeah. He said, I'm tired of this stuff. You see what I'm saying? He was talking. And he said, I was only going through this for you. You know what I'm saying? Now they know how to, that's when I knew that they participate with God to extend their lives. because as soon as he
Until you
said,
accept it.
until I accepted it. And as soon as I accepted it, he said, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
On the other side.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes, you know, I'll ask people, are you getting tired of this battle? And then we start talking about when to let go.
Yes.
But that's, but you know, and then I let them know it's okay. I've let family members know it's okay. If you're ready, you know, it's okay. You've done a good job here, and you've been loved and loved us in return. So if
Well,
it's your time, you can go.
So we got quite a few more threads to mend.
Yeah, we got some mending threads. We gotta tell you, we gotta really talk. We're gonna have to really,
No, that-
we're gonna have to
that's
really come back. Now, I have begun to get some calls,
Okay.
and what I really want to tell our audience is that to please call in and tell us, give me some more questions that you have, some more topics, and then we do have a transformation. As soon as we get enough people signed up, we have a transformation support group that's going to be on Thursday evenings at 6 o'clock. And then we will have our food, and our food is medicine that's already scheduled to be in 3 different churches. And if your church wants to participate, have them call our office. So I do want to say welcome, thank you, and welcome to participating ongoing, and thank you for being here today. But yeah, we have a lot more threads in order to, a lot of more mending to do.
Thank you.
Okay then,
Thank
so
you.
thank you.
I